Hey Grande Live, welcome to Coffee with Will, brought to you by Grand Ron Hospital, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Anything 2 Digital, EONI, and Les Schwab Tire Center. And I am here today with Kevin Durfee, who is the choir conductor for the Grande High School choir, who just came home with a first place finish from state. Not the first place finish they've had in the time that Mr. Durfee has been conducting. So he is here today to talk with me a little bit about conducting, his own passion for music, but also a little bit about what makes him tick and how he balances his powerful love for solitude with enjoyment of conducting other people. So Kevin, thank you so much for joining me here today. Kevin, I really appreciate you coming in here.
Sure.
So you won first at state. So maybe tell me, is there a moment that you remember very vividly from state that just sticks out in your brain this year for winning choir?
Oh boy, what you hope for is that you come off stage and you know that you did your best.
Yeah.
And because you can't choose whether or not you're going to win or lose, and you really have to put the winning of the trophies out of your mind, because if that's what you're thinking about,
it's not what you're not going to do.
You can't focus on the art, which is making good music. So you're really just hoping that time flows that it goes by and you're in the flow and you're not thinking of anything else but making great music. And then when you get off stage, you're just really happy about what you did. And that's what I always remember, is going out, and you go out into the parking lot and then you form up to go into the sight reading room, and we're like, we did it. We did a good job. This is what we wanted. We did well. And so that's the spot.
So for you, it's really about the art and the trophy. That's just kind of the gravy on the top.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing, honestly, because obviously you get a lot of recognition from your community when you win first place. And a lot of people that never have any interest of going to a choir concert will still shake your hand and congratulate you for winning first place. And the kids get a lot of recognition from it. And, they're state champions for the rest of their life. So it is kind of an addictive thing to win or, be a place high at that competition.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you can't let that get in your head and drive everything that you think about or the way that you prepare. You really have to still look at this as a musical performance and be true to the art form, and really just want to, honestly, what you really want to do is move your audience, have your audience feel something when you're singing. And so that's really the goal. Like, how can we perform this in such a way that the audience will feel what the story is, not just hear what the story is and see what it is, but actually feel something when you perform. And if you can get to that point with high school kids, you're being really successful.
Yeah, and that's, and obviously, you have been very successful with that philosophy, because, you've taken first place how many times in the last 10 years? 6, 7?
5, just 5.
Just 5, okay, 5. So 5. But then, on top of that, you've had at least a couple second place finishes and a couple third place finishes. So is that been kind of your philosophy this whole time, or has it changed over the years?
It's an evolving process. There for some time I used to think there was some secret you had to figure out, because I've been going to state, I think this year between Nessa and LeGrand, this was my 18th trip to state. So I've been at the competition a lot over the years, and I used to think, well, if you find that one talented kid and exploit that talent, then that's the way to win. Or do a lot of literature that the judges are unfamiliar with, and that way they won't have a preconceived bias, and that's the way to win. Or, I don't know, but what it really comes down to is singing well. and then
well, that's good. At least that's what you're supposed to be there for, right?
Yeah. It really comes down to singing well, not making mistakes, and luck. And just hope, because you may have adjudicators, and it happened this year, where you get recordings back of your performance with the judges speaking while you're singing, actually. And you can have one that loves what you're doing and the other one that doesn't like a choice you made. I don't know that I would have done it that way, you know. And so there's biases. It's a beauty contest in some regards. And so, but there's still a standard that you're singing to. And if you can sing at the higher level of that standard, then you're more likely to place higher at the contest. But boy, the last few years especially, the choirs are getting really, really, really good. So I just sit there and listen. And that's one thing I don't like about the fact that it's a contest. Part of me would just like to be able to go and say, okay, we won the right to be here. Now let's just sing for each other and enjoy without having to worry about the winning, because then you could really sit there and enjoy what you're hearing. Without hoping, you know, that you're gonna win. So that's hard to separate the competitive side of myself and just hoping, you know, especially for the kids, you know, to be able to leave the Grande High School with this memory.
Well, you know, and I've talked to you multiple times over the past, you know, however many weeks or months or, you know, a couple of years, and you know, every time I talk to you, I'm just so struck by sort of your passion for music and sort of just the basic appreciation of the emotional movements of music, you know, and you know, I think that really comes through in both the way that you talk about music and talk about, you know, competing, you know, in a secondary sort of these competitions, you know. And I'm just, you know, how did you get to the place of having this passion for music? What brought you there?
Well, you know, I grew up in a house with a lot of music in it. And my dad played the guitar, and my sister was taking piano lessons when I was just a toddler. And then my parents also raised 5, they were my cousins, but their parents died in an accident, and they came to live with us. And so we had all these people in the house, and everybody had a record player or radio in their room, so there was music. I don't think the house was ever quiet when I was small, and everybody liked different types, so I had just a lot of exposure. And then I was singing with my siblings when I was young, and also singing with my dad, playing guitar. So there's exposure at a really young age, where that was just a natural way things were around my house. But I can remember going to my sister's concert and hearing her choir sing when I would have been in elementary school, and it struck me. I was like, wow, they sound really good. And then my freshman year of high school, I heard an honor choir, and again, it just was really impressive to me. And I just knew I loved it. I mean, more than anything else, it gave me that zing, I guess, or that feeling of just...
The movement.
The excitement, or just feeling something. And still now, and it'll happen, the kids can actually see it on my arm when they're singing a chord really well, or when they've done a crescendo really well. But the hair on my arm will just raise right up, and I can't describe the feeling, except I guess it's like the emotion of love plus excitement. I don't know, it's just intense. And for me, the biggest musical high I had this year wasn't when I was conducting. I was at Portland State. I was doing an exchange with my choir. So my choir sings for them and they sing for us. And his choir was singing this piece called Saint Chapelle by Eric Whitacre. And it's kind of a long tune and it's in Latin, but they worked on this crescendo where they go and they go and they go and they get a little bit louder. And then when they finally arrive at the spot, it just hit, and I cried out loud. Honestly, it hit me that hard, and that's a gorgeous feeling. So I don't know, I just love it, and there's nothing else that I can think of that provides me with that same high or excitement. And so, all the education and all the work that I do with kids over the years is to try and feed my addiction to that point of getting them where they can finally sing that like that. And this year, you know, I had a good choir that did that for me often. I mean, especially as they get polished and they get on later. And that's why they sing too, is because they feel it. And that whole idea of being on the same page, singing with the same vowels, singing with the same resonance, singing with the same focus, for the same purpose. When you have 40 people doing that, and then it all comes together to make a beautiful chord or a beautiful long phrase of expression, is magical. And it's a glorious thing, and really connects, I think, to a deep level of the best part of our being human that there is.
Wow. Jeez. I don't know if I've ever heard music like described, and effective music described so powerfully, at least in a one-on-one conversation. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
So, you know, that all being said, you know, like one thing that you obviously think very deeply about these things, you know, and something that's always been interesting to me about you is that, you know, you're a very introspective, introverted person. You think about concepts and music, and you feel music very powerfully, yet you find yourself in a position where you're working with many people and, you know, all bringing and directing them and sort of guiding them. How do those two worlds sort of touch? How does the world of solitude touch the world of social? And are they beneficial? Are they things that come together?
I think so. I honestly think, and I'll tell kids this, I said, unless you have a place of quiet that you can go to, then how are you going to be able to express these emotions or these feelings? Because that's what music basically is, a language of feeling. How are you going to connect the two if you can't ever be quiet, if you can't ever think? I think people that can't quiet the noise and are always just verbal have a hard time understanding that. I also, you know, when I was a kid, I was a quiet one that really never felt like I had anything smart to say or put into a conversation. And still as an adult, I usually have a hard time having a conversation. Well, one-on-one I do well, but if I'm in a group, I don't usually have a lot to say.
My fiance is the same way, yeah.
I'll let my wife do all the talking. She's good at that, and I'll just lean back and usually not contribute much, unless I find the conversation interesting or I have something to say, you know. But now that I'm a teacher and you get to observe kids, and you remember back at being that age, now what I hear a lot is these aren't deep thoughts coming out of kids' mouth. Usually the ones that are loud all the time, it's just whatever happens to be on the top of that scroll in the minute, and it just goes. And then, but you can still find those quiet kids, you know, sitting in the classroom that are just watching. And chances are, if you ask them what they think about something, they're thinking, and it usually has depth because they're thinking and not talking. They're listening to their own thoughts. So I think, you know, it does, I've thought about this, a choir rehearsal with a good choir, with a choir where I don't have to worry about classroom management or discipline, where that's not stealing my focus and I can just be in the musical, artistic side, where you're listening, enjoying, or listening, and then fixing, and then listening again, and going back and forth, and you can work really fast. And just that rehearsal process, basically it's no different than playing the piano by yourself, and you play something that's not right or not the way that you want to hear it, so you slow down and you take it apart to its smaller pieces until you can build it and chunk it back together. When you're working with a good choir that doesn't give you the challenges of kids talking or kids not focused or kids that don't have their binders.
They're in it. They're
in it. You're all working for the same purpose. Then that 45 minutes, 50 minutes goes by so fast that the bell will ring and surprise you that, and where's the time gone? And it's like that quite often, where when you're in the class where it seems like half your time is spent trying to convince the kids to do what you need them to do to get better, time in that regard goes really slow. So for an introvert, I don't know what's the introvert side, I hate conflict. I hate having to try to bring kids into focus or the classroom management part. It costs me something energy-wise or emotionally every time I've got to have that conversation with a kid, and yet if I avoid having that conversation, things just get worse and things fall apart more. So before a kid can even make it into my top choir, they got to have some self-discipline,
Yeah.
at least so that I don't have to give them that part or provide that part for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, they don't, even if they're a great singer, but they're a screwball, they don't get in.
Yeah.
You know, I can't work with that very well.
Very cool.
So does that kind of answer?
I mean, yeah, it's. I liked what you said about and I always think that this is such a powerful thing. You know, you said the music is the language of emotion, and if you never are quiet, you can never actually be able to express that and be able to, maybe listen to some of the deeper notes inside of yourself, kind of a thing. You know.
Yeah.
So I really like that, and I think I always come away from our interviews just with so many great little things to take away. So and I think we're kind of coming to the end of our time here, but and I didn't prepare you for this question. I do this sometimes with people, but and so you can think about it if you need to. But maybe there's somebody out there who's watching right now who is either a member of your choir or or someone just aspiring to music and art and the language of emotion, kind of a thing. Is there a tip or maybe like a couple tips that you might give them to be able to become a better expresser of that language?
That's a good question.
And like I said, you can think about that if you need to.
Well, I think, okay, so there's several different levels to this answer. I'll give you kind of a long answer if that's all right.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
When I was at TVCC, I think I was one of the better piano players there, and I thought I was awesome.
Yeah.
Right? But there was one sonata that I was trying to play by Beethoven. It's the Pathetique Sonata, and it has a part in it where your left hand has to do this bouncing back and forth between octaves and then move all over the place.
Yeah.
And it goes on for, 40 seconds, for a long time.
It's an exercise in carpal tunnel syndrome.
Right. Without good technique, you get all this tightness, which affects your speed. But the music itself is tense. It's driving. And so when I went to Portland State, I thought I was going to be at 300 level piano, and they dropped me all the way down to 100 level, basically a freshman, which meant I was going to be there for extra years, right?
Yeah.
It was really disappointing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know I didn't know. But they busted me down and then taught me, good technique. But still, you had to practice of being able to play these notes and keep the tension that you feel with the emotion out of your technique. So that your fingers could play, so that they would play without getting tight, because you can't have tightness and play well.
Yeah.
And with speed. And the same is true. I've always wondered about the lead singer for AC/DC. How does he sing like that? That screamo sound, kind of. But he's learned how. He's got technique that allows him to sing that. He's not tight. There's no way. Or he wouldn't be able to sing like that way into his late 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Opera singers have to learn good technique. They may sound tense, but they're relaxed. Or they're keeping the muscles that need to be relaxed and not let it get tight to where they get this tension in their throat. So where am I going with that? Tips, learn technique. You have to have the technique or the ability first, and then you can bring in the emotion or the artistry after that. Matter of fact, it's an important thing. I had a really good piano player tell me this once. It's like, I've got the technique, but when you have really good technique, then people don't even pay attention to the fact that you're doing something hard. They're hearing the music behind that. And so that's another thing that we do some hard literature in the choir, but if I'm being good, I'm trying to not make it so hard that they can't sing musically beyond it, because ultimately you can still go to state and do very well with simple music as long as it's artistic and makes the listener feel something. Now, that being said, there's still those people out there that get up and they may only know 3 chords and on the guitar, and they haven't had any vocal training at all, but the intent of their emotion is strong enough that you still feel something when they're singing. So that's still there. Although sometimes you hear people sing and they're going for it, you're like,
you've got the heart, but
but ouch. Oh, man. So
maybe you should put that heart away.
So, I don't know, they're just...
Technique.
Technique is important.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, and it does transcend, you know, between a lot of different art forms. I think dance is the same thing, technique.
Yeah.
So you don't hurt yourself or so you can express yourself. But the whole idea of being able to stay and relax so that everything feels natural, you know, goes to guitar, clarinet, piano, everything. It's about keeping loose. And in order to do that, you have to practice slow, and teaching kids how to practice slow and soft is hard to do because they always want to play loud and fast.
It's like running. You have to run slow some days so that you can run fast the other days.
And learn the technique.
You
know, or you're going to hurt yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think we are out of time. Thank you, Kevin. As always, I always feel like I get so much out of our conversations, and I hope you got something out of this Grande Live. This has been Coffee with Will and Kevin Durfee, brought to you by Grande Hospital, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Anything to Digital, EONI, and Les Schwab Tire Center. All of these are wonderful sponsors, and if you have the opportunity, go into their stores, frequent them, and they thank you for providing the sponsorship for the shows that we provide here on the Grande Live that keep LeGrand informed through social media and otherwise. So I'm Will Bowman. Please like and share the video and tune into LeGrand Live.tv for more local content.